this week I've been making a lot of gum paste flowers to go onto a wedding cake, and one of those flowers is a David Austin rose. So I thought, what better opportunity than to show you exactly how I made the gum paste roses. I just love how pretty the David Austin roses are because they have that really pretty frilly center. Now they're made in a slightly different way to the more traditional rose, but if you are looking for how to make a traditional rose, then I do have another video on this channel, so check that one out. But let's get started. Okay, so the things that we're going to need in order to make the David Austin rose is, first of all, I've got my gum paste. So this is just Squire's floral paste, which I've coloured in a peach colour mixed with a tiny hint of dusky pink. Next, I've got my wire. Now this is just 24 gauge wire, and I've just cut 5 pieces of this, which are around 5 inches in length. I've then got some wire tools, some petal cutters. Now these are just rose petal cutters, and I've got 3 different sizes. So we've got a larger one which is about 1.5 inches across, one which goes down to around 1 inch across, and one which is about 1/3 of an inch. I've then got my ball tool and my craft knife. I've got a petal vayner here. Now you may wish to use one of these, or you may wish to just keep the gum paste smooth. My rolling pin and some edible glue. I've also got my foam mat, this kitchen blowtorch. Now this is just to heat up the end of my wire just to pop into the gum paste, and this just quickens up the process. But if you have got time, you can just glue the wire into the gum paste. And the last thing that I've got is just a plastic container. Now this is just to put some of the petals in if we're not working on them so that they don't dry out. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is just take some of my gum paste, and I just want to pull a small piece of that off and create a teardrop shape. So I'm just going to roll that gum paste in the palm of my hand and just push on one side. Now this is very similar to if you've ever made gum paste roses, but we want these slightly smaller. So we want this one to be about 1/3 of the length of the smallest of our petals. And I'm just going to make 5 of these. So we want to make sure that these are all the same size. Now, depending on how frilly you want the center of your flower, you could do more of these or you could do less. It is entirely up to you. There we go. Now all I want to do is attach my wire. So I'm just going to take one of the lengths and my tools with the 2 rounded ends and just create a loop at the end of those, and I'm going to do that to all 5 of those. Now, if you've got time for them to dry, you can pop the ends of these into some edible glue and push that into the end. Now because I want to work on these straight away, I'm going to actually heat the end of the wire. So I'm just going to turn this on and heat that until the wire is glowing. I'm then just going to take one of my buds and push that into the end. Now all this is doing is just melting that gum paste, and that will make the wire quite secure inside. Okay, so now we have all 5 of those buds with wire in. What I'm going to do is start to cut out my petals. So I'm going to take the smallest of the petal cutters, and I'm just going to roll out some of that gum paste. Now, once you've rolled your gum paste out, you want to roll it out so thin that you can just slightly see your fingers through it. So as thin as you can make it. Okay, so in terms of how many petals we're going to need, for each one of the buds, I'm going to need 5 petals to start with of the smaller size. So I'm going to cut out 25 of those petals. Okay, so once they're all cut out, any gum paste that we didn't use, I'm just going to wrap into some cling film and put in our plastic box. I'm then going to keep 5 of the petals out and just pop the rest in the container until we need those. I'm then going to take the first of my buds and my foam board and my ball tool. Now I'm just going to place my petals onto my foam board, and using my ball tool I'm just going to run around this top edge, just pushing on that gum paste, making it slightly ruffled and just thinning it out, and then just going to pull on the petals just to round them off slightly so that they'll fit around our bud. I'm then going to take some of my edible glue and just pop that on each of those petals. So I'm going to take my first bud and just one of my petals, and I'm just going to place the bud onto the petal just so there's about 1/2 centimetre of petal at the top. I'm then going to fold petal over, slightly push that together, making this little ruffle. I'm then going to take the next one and just place that on top of where we did the previous one, and again just pull that around, and I'm going to continue to do that for all 5 of the petals. So we end up with this really pretty ruffle shape. So we've got our bud that just sits in the center, and then all 5 of these petals that just surround it, and they all meet on one side. So what I'm going to do is do the exact same thing to the other 4 buds, so that I end up with 5 of these which are really similar. Okay, so now we've got our 5 flower centers. What I'm going to do is connect these all together. Now, the other thing you will need is some floral tape, which I forgot at the beginning, so apologies. So I'm just going to stretch that out just to allow the gum to become active. And I'm just going to take all 5 of my flower buds, and all I want to do is where all the joins are together, so where all the petals come, I want to bring that into the center and match up all 5 of those. So all the joins are facing inwards, and you might need to bend the wires round slightly just to bring them all together in the center. And once you're happy with how they've come together, I'm just going to take some of that floral tape and just wet my fingers slightly at the end. I'm then just going to wrap that around 5 wires just to join those all together. So I'm just going to work my way down and just tear that off. So there we have our flower center. Now I'm just going to put this to one side to dry slightly, and whilst I cut out some more petals. So all I'm going to do is just bend that wire and just hang it over a wire frame. It will just mean that the flowers don't have to touch the surface. Okay, so for the next layer of petals, what I'm going to do is just take some more of that gum paste and also go up to the next size in petal cutter, and I'm just going to cut out 5 of these. Okay, so I've got my 5 petals, and as we're going to start working out with the petals, you may want to use a petal vayner if you've got one. Now all this is going to do is just make the petals look a little bit more realistic. Now what I also like to do with some of my petals is just take my craft knife and just pull pieces of those petals away, and all this is going to do is just make them look a little bit realistic, as petals in nature are not so perfect. So I'm just going to do that to a few of the 5. I'm then going to use my ball tool and do exactly the same as we did previously. So I'm just going to run it around that top edge and just thin out that gum paste. Now I'm going to put some edible glue on each of those, and we're going to use these to keep the center parts together. So I'm just going to bring in our center flower, and I'm going to take my first petal and I just want to place it over the join, so it's the same height. Push down on one side and just really push in to where those 2 join. I'm then just going to leave the last edge up to tuck the next petal in, and just push that over that join and just work my way around. Then just place the last one in and just push that over the top. Now I'm just going to pull those edges out just so they're where I want them. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but with 6 petals this time. And all I want to do is start bringing the tops of the petals just out slightly, just so we can start opening up the rows. Now, once these ones are all ruffled the same way that we did the previous ones, all I'm going to do is just flip these over, and just on some of these, just start to roll those edges back slightly, just so it will start to open the flower out. So I'm not going to fully fold these over, but I'm just going to turn them so that the ruffles will be starting to go outwards. So I'm just going to bring in the flower as we have it and do exactly the same as we did before. So where I see one of the joins, I'm going to place that first petal on. I'm then just going to tuck the next one underneath and start to work my way out. Now I'm not going to push these petals fully against the previous ones as we did before, and all this is going to do is start to open up the flower. And now I'm going to start working on the petals around the edge. So I'm going to take the biggest one of my cutters and I'm going to create another layer of those, and I'm going to create another 6, and I'm just going to thin the edges of those. I'm then going to flip that over. I'm then going to take the small end of my ball tool and just wrap petals round so that you create this V shape, and I'm going to do that to all 6 of the petals. Now you might want to leave these ones to dry just for a few minutes, just so they keep their shape a little more when you pop them on the flower. So I'm just going to push where we've popped that edible glue against the flower, leaving one side slightly open so that we can tuck that next petal in. Do the same to the next one and just work my way around the entire flower, adding those 6 petals on. Okay, so here we have the rose so far, and as you can see, it's really taken shape and looks like a rose. Now you can either leave it this size, or depending on the floral arrangement you're making or the size of your cake, you can add more layers. So the last layer had 6 petals on, and I've just created another 7 petals here. Now I've done exactly the same thing and just turned over the edges. Now I've left these ones to dry for a few minutes, just so they'll keep their shape as we put them on. So I'm just going to pop some edible glue onto these ones and start to wrap these round. Now again, I'm going to place the next petal where the previous row joined, and I'm just going to push that edible glue down and slot the next one in and just work my way. I'm then just going to turn the rows over and just make sure that all the petals are pushed down so that they are stuck properly. I'm then just going to turn that back over and just hang that on my wire rack just until that's dry. So for a few hours or maybe even overnight. So here we have the finished David Austin rose. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial and will find it useful if you're looking to make your own roses. If you have liked the video, then don't forget to give it a like and don't forget to share it with your friends. Also, if you'd like to see more videos like this, then don't forget to subscribe, and you can also click the notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will just alert you every time a new video is uploaded. I'll also put a link in the description below to all my social media if you want to follow me there. Bye!